Welcome everyone to MJ Hobby Corner. I'm Martin and I will be your host in this video. So I was up all night. Why is that important? Don't know, but I was up all night and came into the studio around 4 a.m. and I decided, well, I can't sleep. So what do? Began studying my rules, as we have a 5 par 6 game for my Patreon and that needs to get filmed. Began making maps, as I do have a new document that's coming up next year. That's going to be a collection of all my maps and things that I do in that nature. It's going to be another digital perk on my Patreon. And I also began preparing a solo RPG session because I really enjoy solo RPGs. And finally, I started construction on my walkers. There's a new walker. I'm going to present that in this video. And yeah, so I did all that since 4. It's about 6:30 a.m. now. Sun's just starting to come up. And yeah, I'm going to just keep working. Now, next week's going to be very busy. I have a lot of things going on in both my personal life and holiday prep and all that stuff. So I'm going to try to get in as much content as I can, maybe try to get in a couple of games. So hopefully that'll happen sometime next week. We'll see. I mean, tis the season. It's the holiday season. So of course, there is a lot going on. So, all right, let's get to the first update, which is the walker. So I have this oddly shaped thing here on my table, and so now I put the sponsoon that goes on the side, and I'm going to flatten that bubble of hot glue. That was a mistake. So let's see, and we're going to work on the sides a little bit so that they're not so straight, and we're also going to fix these corners here. But first, what do I do with that sponsoon? Well, I go to my cereal box cardboard and I go the lazy way again. Basically, I start to fill in the sponsoon. Alright, so now that I've made my cuts, I actually begin to frame this monstrosity with pieces of cocktail stick, and then I'll go back and start filing a little bit. Notice that I also use pieces of plastic which come from these, cutting up these little grids here, and then you just get the little plastic and I use that to frame. And yeah, so I just keep doing that, and we have a very oddly shaped chassis here. Now that front square, the little square, is going to be the weapon mount, and I think I'm going to put a hatch here. So this morning I added this, and so this is the new walker. Now this is a heavy walker. These are actually not walkers but crawlers. That's the term that I've decided I will call them for the time being, and these are dune crawlers. Now I think what I'm going to do is I'll call them trench crawlers at first, because they, according to the narrative that I'm working on, they will be used heavily for trench warfare in this fictitious Great War. But this Great War will also expand into the desert, and so later they'll be called dune walkers, and they are big. Now this one doesn't have the moving gun, and that's okay. It doesn't always have to move. But let's talk about this build for a little bit. First of all, it's a very, very odd shape, as you can see. And the way that I managed to build the chassis for this vehicle, the hull, the main hull, is I used a small cardboard box, little hardware box. It had a lot of little screws and mounting brackets for like curtains, and it was a nice small box. And so I decided to use that box. Now, when I use a box like that, what I do is that I try to use as much of that little box as possible. I will cut out the tabs of the box and the little lid of the box, but I save that cardboard, and all of that gets incorporated into the vehicle. And I change the shape of the box as well by making certain cuts in order that I can angle the front a little bit so it's not too boxy. Now, in the beginning, and I almost gave up on this project a couple of times. That happens to me all the time, really. Um, what in the beginning, things are very boxy, very kind of crude, and some things need a little bit of filing and so forth. So really, I just like take my time and I don't give up. I essentially just keep going, keep going. If I find that I don't like the design after I've spent some time working on it, I don't sweat it. I change the design. I just try something different. Now I have to wait till this thing glues, but basically on the belly of this thing there is a flamethrower or machine gun, whichever of the two. I'm thinking probably a flamethrower, and it does move all around. Now I'm waiting for things to glue, so I don't want to mess with it too much. But basically, this would defend the bottom of the machine. And in this case, it is kind of facing backwards, which is fine. It moves all around. And so that was a detail that I really wanted to put into this thing. Now, here in the back, we see various little details. There's a little wooden block. There is a tiny clothespin, which holds that cylindrical item there. And that was found inside of a pill bottle. It kind of keeps the pills separated and so forth. So they don't just all fall out at once. And so once the pill bottle was empty, I took the cylindrical object there and used it. It fit perfectly. And yes, that is a muffler back there. These things are more like diesel punk. And I used some cable ties for detail. On the bottom are those corrugation pieces that I use for detail as well. And then I added some armor to the base of the legs. Now, this thing also has machine guns. So here is a machine gun right there. And then there's another machine gun over here. And then there's one right in the front there that the driver can operate. And then, of course, the main gun. And then the bottom weapon. So it has plenty of defenses. There is also a rear machine gun here, right by the muffler. And that's, of course, because this thing would be vulnerable to any infantry attack. Now, I made it so it can work with my 15 millimeter armies. That's what I intend to use these for, 15 millimeters. We'll see, maybe 172 scale, if I want the machines to be a little smaller. And you may wonder what this is for, this thing here. And I'm thinking particularly the British MK4 would carry logs on that rear section there. So I decided that that front piece would basically play the same role, and then I'm going to make a nice little log batch, and probably not going to glue it. I'm going to find another way to attach it. And basically, it would carry these logs over a trench, and then it would have a mechanism where these big plates here would drop, and it would drop these logs into the trench so that other vehicles behind it can actually cross the trench, easier. That was the purpose for those logs. And of course, if there's any unfortunate infantry down below, well, it's gonna hurt when those logs actually fall. Now here is the vehicle with some primer, and we have the little British troops. We see just how big these things are. If I'm using 15 millimeter, these are really massive machines. So here is the new walker. This is the project of the month for December. This is the final project of 2024. So there it is, and yeah, not too bad. So this will be painted with airbrush. Probably do some kind of camouflage scheme or something like that. Now I'm just gonna turn this around, and let's just put the other walker, which is gonna be the enemy walker. Big Leviathan class walkers, or crawlers, whichever way we want to interpret them. There we go. So there you have it, folks. An interesting project, and this was the project of the month for December, which will come out in January. And of course, the last project of 2025. 2024. I'm ahead of myself. 2025 is coming. So basically, that's it. I usually like to create narrative as I'm building these things. It really helps to kind of narrow down the build to give it a little more interest. I will start thinking about narrative, and yeah, we'll see in the future where it takes us. Now, I do plan on maybe I'll just use my World War II troops, the 15mm stuff that I just showed, and just paint them up, and we'll use that instead of buying, you know, other troops. And the other thing is that there's only 2 more vehicles that I want to make to finish this collection. That'll be next year, and it'll be little armored cars to go with the tanks. And so I'm going to look at some World War I armored cars and build 1 or 2. So that'll finish this collection, and we can get gaming with it. So there we go. Crawlers, walkers, 4 o'clock in the morning. It was a lot of fun. I just finished a project, and it's what, 11 o'clock in the morning now. So yeah, thank you very much. We'll see how much content I can put in next week. We do have the board game Descent, which I'm going to continue the combat system for that board game. So do join me if you're interested in Descent 2nd Edition. I'm going to make a little series out of it. So we will continue that next week and on into the new year. Maybe finish it this year. I think we can. Definitely. There is that week in between the holidays that will I will definitely put some content out. All right, folks, thank you very much for your support. And by the way, one last thing, Scratch Builder Monthly, starting in January, is going to be streamlined. It's going to be about 40 pages. I was writing about 60 pages since last September, and that was due to my anniversary. I figured out that my 4-year anniversary was towards like end of September. From October and November issues and September, I believe, yes, the magazine would be more robust. So those were a couple of issues, October and November, which the magazine would be a little more robust, about 60 pages or so, a little over 60 pages. And then coming the new year, it's going to stream down again. It's going to be streamlined to about 40 pages. All right. So I just wanted to say that for any of you that support the magazine. That will give me a break and also help me, because I do have new things that I want to create, new kinds of documents and digital materials. So, all right, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great one, and yeah, we'll talk soon.